What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Blondes Building Equity. I'm super excited. We have another female guest on today, which is always really fun. So she has in her bio, rebel turned real estate investor. So she's got tattoos. She's super fun, and I'm so excited to have her on today. So everybody welcome Megan Ahern. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly you do in real estate.
So I live right now in Lincoln, Nebraska, but I grew up in Southern California.
Oh,
Um, and we mostly flip houses right now, but we own some rental property. We own sober living houses. That's kind of near and dear to my heart. And then we just started doing new builds too.
So, with the sober living, how did you get into that? And tell us a little bit more about that.
So we had a guy who was working for us that was kind of living in a hotel. He had just got out of rehab. We were driving him back and forth to work. One day he goes, "Oh, I got a new place to stay. Can you drop me off at this other house?" And he tells me the address, and I'm like, "Oh, I flipped that house like a year ago, and an investor bought it to be a sober living house." And he's like, "Yeah, it's this Oxford House program," and he's telling me all about the program. And it just kind of opened the door, like opened my mind to it. And then later, we had a vacancy in the winter of a big 5-bedroom house. And they're really hard to rent here because they're usually college girls or college kids that rent those big houses, but they're always, where they're going to be at in the winter.
yeah.
So I reached back out to that guy and was like, "Can you hook me up with that program to kind of, put us together?" And we ended up making that house a college sober living house. And then now we've had 4 of them so far.
Wow. So, what's the difference as far as like rental income with a sober living house versus maybe just another? Like, what are the perks? What are the benefits of that?
For us, it's more of like it doesn't take a lot of time. It's just set it and forget it. With the college kids, we're turning those over every year, right?
Right.
But these were some 3-year leases, and we're renting to the program, and then the program fills the beds. So the houses have a lot of turnover, but for us as the landlords, we're just renting to the program, and it's like 3-year lease. We don't ever have to touch it.
Actually, I
Wow.
think one of
Yeah.
our big flips in Huntington Beach, it's a 5 bedroom, same huge, massive house. The neighbor told us that previously, I think it was a sober living house. And so
Yeah.
they would just pack as many people as possible to program. So it's really interesting to hear that as a
Wow.
model.
Do you get more? Like, is the rental income significantly more, or is it about the same as if like a family was renting it out?
It's kind of hard to judge because if like what kind of a family would rent an 8-bedroom house,
Right,
right?
right.
And so what could you charge a family for an 8-bedroom house? But it's usually about the same or slightly less than what you could charge college kids by the room,
Yeah.
but it's just way less hassle.
Interesting. That might be a good option.
I know. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the first time we've talked about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So how many flips have you done now and how many rentals do you have?
We've done over 50 deals, so probably about 30 of them were full remodels, and then some are, just wholesales or whatever weird stuff. Um, but we have 9 units right now. We had more rentals in 2020, and then we kind of sold them all off because they were college rentals. They were just like 100-year-old houses and junk, and we sold them off. We didn't want them anymore. I kind of thought that was going to be the peak. Obviously, I was totally wrong. But, we sold them off, and then now we just buy like really nice, easier rentals.
And do you do all your rentals in the area that you live?
Yeah, they're all in Lincoln.
Wow.
And what's kind of the average price for a home in Nebraska?
Like 280 to 300.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
That's-
That's a bit more than kind of like other smaller towns, right?
Yeah, Lincoln, Nebraska, and then Omaha. Those are the 2 big cities in Nebraska. Yeah, they're decent markets. I mean, our city has about 300,000 people. So it's not like a tiny little small town.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a smaller price point. So
Yeah.
we're in LA. Our price point is multi-million. That's it. And it's kind of crazy because when we talk to people about it, it's like the deal volume is just so different because when every house we buy is 2 million, it causes so we've been having the discussion like, do we need to move?
Yeah.
We've talked about Nashville. We just feel like it's so much less. There's just so much that can go wrong with the high volume, and especially right now.
And then you lose so much more too. There's just so much more at risk. So I feel like getting into the mid-range homes, it would be almost a safer investment because you're not losing millions of dollars.
Yeah, and with the economy, with the change right now, we've definitely, the high price range has really taken a hit.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your strategy moving forward? How do you feel about the economy right now?
When I got started, I was living in Southern California. So that was kind of my thing too. I could not wrap my mind around spending like that much money and like having those huge carrying costs and all those things that come with the higher prices of house. So when my husband got out of the military, we just picked Nebraska because it was a good rental market and it was cheaper. Like I could wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
And it was just so instrumental in being able to do a lot of projects. And then now that I'm doing it, I'm kind of like, well, why wouldn't I go back to California and do it there? And like, even with realtor stuff, like my husband and I are both realtors. We did 35 transactions last year. You know, that would be huge money in California.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, decent money in Nebraska because our transactions are so much smaller. You know?
But there is some competition here, which I feel like is hard.
Yeah.
To even get a deal.
And it's
more agents than there are buyers here.
Yeah, and there is, it's a lot easier to be a big fish in like a little pond, honestly.
Yeah. How did you get started in real estate? Because your bio is from rebel to real estate investor. So where did you get the title rebel?
I just kind of been a rebel, you know, all my life, breaking the rules and not going to school. I started working early and homeschooled myself for my senior year, and just kind of wandered around from job to job and, you know, did it all the way and got promoted and then would get bored and move on. I didn't want to go to college, had a big party phase. I became an alcoholic and an addict. And then we got sober about 8 years ago. And that's kind of when we started investing in real estate and investing in ourselves. And then, you know, tried to get traction in Southern California, tried. We did like a long distance flip from there in Albuquerque and lost 20 grand on that. And then we did a live-in flip in Southern California and made like 80 grand. And then, like I said, when my husband was getting out of the military, we sold everything we owned and we moved into a travel trailer.
Oh, wow.
With our 1-year-old. Yeah.
Oh.
And moved to Nebraska and parked it behind our flips for the first year till we could kind of prove to ourselves that we could make it work.
Oh my God. Wow. That's dedication. With a 1-year-old?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know, wow.
Wow. So what do you think for new investors that are listening, what do you think if you could go back and start all over, what is something that you would definitely do? What strategy would you kind of use?
I don't think it totally matters what strategy you pick as long as you pick something and just do it all the way. And I think for new people, they're so scared of like, oh, I'm going to make a mistake, or what if I fail, or what if I lose money? And like the truth of it is you're going to. Like, just get over it. You're going to lose some money at some point. You're going to mess up. You're going to make bad choices. Contractor's going to steal from you. Just get over it and like keep learning from it and keep pushing through it. And then just, you know, make it work at some point. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, and I like that you kind of take everyone's biggest fears and you're like, okay, so it's going to happen, so find a way to get over it.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset you have to be successful, because you can't mitigate every risk and never jump in the deep end. I mean, at some point, there's going to be a moment where you may be drowning a little bit, and then you're going to make your way back up again. And that's how you're successful.
And that's how sometimes we feel like when you get into real estate, you know, you just fed so much positivity, which is beautiful. It gets you excited about real estate, but like you're not told in the beginning, like, listen, it's going to be really hard and you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
But keep going, you
Yeah.
know, and so many people don't touch on that. And
Yeah.
then you feel like, oh
You
my
feel
God, this is
defeated.
a lot more, like it was supposed to be so easy. I make $1 million a year flipping. Like that's not the case. You know, I say to anyone now, like if you stick with something for 10 years, then plan to make $1 million. But no way set your mind that that's going to happen tomorrow, because automatically you're going to get let down, and it's really, really hard. So when do you think you started to really see those financial gains in the business? How many years in were you before you were like, okay, I got this, and you guys were able to like really feel comfortable?
More. Yeah.
I don't even know if we're there yet, you know, because you just like keep going and then you keep like pushing the bar higher and you keep doing more projects, and it stretches your capital even thinner. And so it's just a process. And I mean, yeah, I'm more comfortable now than when I was living in a trailer, you know, but it just gets a different kind of hard, you know, when you're trying to carry like so many deals at one time. It's still kind of a cash poor game, because at least for me, like I'm an addict, and so I have just gotten addicted to flipping houses. So if I get $10, like I'm gonna buy another house with it. And so I'm still just like always broke, but I have a lot of houses.
That's you.
Literally, I can relate to that so much. But that's what's scary for us, is like we are trying to navigate that, like this liquid broke situation where you're like, we're asset rich, but we are liquid broke, and it's really hard because the second you get money again, you want to buy another deal. So I guess it's when that's what we said, like I guess keep your head down for 20 years, and when you have that passive income and you decide it's your exit plan, but until then, buckle up.
Like you talked about being liquid broke during real estate investing, is there another stream of income that you do as well to kind of bring more money in? Because with flipping, if you're just constantly putting it back into real estate, we've kind of realized you do have to have like a third or a second or a third source of income in order to just kind of survive or to mitigate your losses. So do you have that?
Yeah, we have quite a few streams of income, honestly. So when my husband Jeff got out of the military, he was disabled. So he's 100% disabled vet. So he gets some income from that. And when we moved out here, we were like, okay, we could live in the trailer on that income. So that was like our kind of fallback income.
Yeah.
And then he became a realtor. So now we have that realtor income. He did like 10 million in volume. 35 transactions, right? So it's a lot of different numbers for you guys.
That's like
and then I own I own a staging company, so that's another stream of income, and then our flipping and our rentals.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I feel like you've really always got to have your active and your passive income, and know that you're building something bigger for the future, but it's just going to take a lot of streams of income, a lot of work.
Yeah, that's another thing they don't really teach you. All of these flip it and make money, and real estate gurus are like, okay, flip it and you make 100K, and in your young little mind you're like, wow, 100K, that's great, I can flip this. You don't realize the carrying costs, the taxes, everything that goes into it. Plus you need money to put into the next deal. Plus when you refinance, you need to put some of your own money into it. So there's so many variables, and at the end of the day you're broke. So we're realizing like, wow, we still need to, like, I still need to be an active real estate agent and have other sources of income so we don't starve.
Yeah, and in all reality, like I like the way that our income streams are set up, because we have like our flips are big chunks of money, but they maybe only happen like every few months, right? And then the realtor transactions are more like, okay, multiple a month, and then our staging is like multiple a week. So we're having that income, you know, kind of sprinkled throughout more, instead of just like this feast and famine of these big chunks of money for each flip.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
And so have you done any burrs where you have nothing into any of your rentals, or have you been able to pull that off?
Yeah, most of our rentals are that way, or very, very minimal money. So like we just bought one for like 155 and then put 60 grand into it. And then it was worth like 280. But I think we had to pay like $3,000 for appliances and curtains or something. So like that's the money that we have in it. And our mortgage is $1,800 and our rent is $2,700 on that.
Oh,
Okay,
nice.
I like that. All these real estate gurus are always telling you like the BRRRR method, you buy, then you rehab, and then you refinance, and like you keep it long term. And I'm like, how? Like if we refinance, we have to then put our money, our own money into it. We don't get anything out of it for ourselves to live off of. How do people do that long term? Like where is their money coming from? Like we just spent 6 months renovating this house and now we don't get any to reap the benefits at all. Like how do people do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. And so I feel like once you start doing like volume, then you can kind of say, all right, I'm going to flip a couple and then keep one and flip a couple and keep one. But yeah, in the beginning, we kind of just needed to flip for big profits. And the other part of it was we didn't have 2 years of tax returns on any of our businesses. So we could only get so many rentals before the banks were kind of like, whoa, girl, you don't even have a job. You're just living in a trailer. Like, what are you trying to do? We wanted to show that big fat flip income so that we had the tax returns to show the banks like, hey, we make money doing this. We're not just farting
Right.
around.
Okay.
And so with the change of the market right now, are you guys continuing to flip? What have you guys kind of seen in your market as far as like if you had projects 6 months ago that you bought now on the market, are you seeing those losses?
Our market has slowed down a little bit, but still not even to like a normal level, and our pricing hasn't dropped. So we have less transactions, but our prices haven't come down yet. I had 2 big flips going when the interest rates like doubled, and I kind of took a step back and said, okay, what do I need to do? I had probably about 6 flips going. And I was like, these 2 expensive ones I need to like focus on and put all my resources on, get them done instantly, as soon as possible, and just get them sold. And so we lost like $5,000, if that,
Okay.
on one of them, and then we made $20,000 on the other one, and then just kind of moved on. The ones that are in kind of the first time homebuyer price point, they were fine. They did well still. And now I'm just buying like very kind of conservatively, where before we were maybe saying like, oh, I know I can push this ARV above what the comps say because my stuff is so cute and like, oh, it's whatever. But I like, oh, it's the best thing. So I
All the comps, you're like, but my house is better.
But come on.
yeah, like obviously mine's gonna sell for more. But now I'm like, I'm only going to pull actual comps and believe in the actual comps.
But you guys are still this year going full force buying.
We are. We've slowed down a little bit just because I think we haven't been able to find as many deals, just because like the supply is so low, and because I am being more conservative. And I think that here sellers haven't really adjusted their pricing yet, to kind of make those interest rates match the pricing. But yeah, I'm still buying. I'm just trying to look at more like, can I keep it as a rental if it doesn't sell as a flip? And then if it does work as a rental, then I'm like, well, why not?
And when you're doing the rental numbers, what interest rate do you run to make sure that it would make sense?
I'm running them at a 7 right now, but I'm also stress testing them at an 8 to make sure that if they go up higher, like I'll still be fine.
You mean when you refi?
Right, because we obviously, you hope when you run the numbers, like, okay, interest rates might come down a little bit. You always hope, but it's good to know that stress test it just a little bit higher, because you hear so many different people telling us interest rates are going to go up this year. We've had people telling us their interest rates are going to go down. And so the number one thing we've learned in the last month is you can't time the market. You've just got to keep going. But we have seen a big dip in the higher price range. So
Things just aren't selling.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that they're selling at a loss. They're just not really selling right now. Like there's not as many offers going on. So that's what's a little bit scary. Like sellers haven't really been realistic on the price, like you just said, which I think we're part of that, because we don't want to be realistic on the price, because then that means we may have to lose some money. So the flippers are like, oh no, we're not down this much yet. but the market is kind of showing with the buyers. Like our buyers now are so picky. They're like, oh, you don't have this, you don't have this, and we're already below market value with what we're selling, and they're still getting picky. So I'm starting to realize
it's just so much more picky than they were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago, you bought as is, or I mean, more like 8 months ago, you bought as is, and you take what you can get at that time. And now we see every buyer coming in that's like, oh, I mean, do you have this? You have this, and we're like, what? It's just a different time for us in Los Angeles, you know.
That's kind of how ours is too. As far as they're getting inspections, they're not acting crazy anymore. The appraisal gap coverage has gone away. But at least we're still getting those offers. A lot of our houses are still getting multiple offers. So it's still going pretty strong.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, it's scary because the higher market, I guess, we're the ones that get hit first. So we really didn't see it coming. Now the other markets are like, oh, we should probably watch out. That one's a little scary.
So now we're actually turning a few into Airbnbs and navigating that. Do you have any Airbnbs or all just long-term hold?
I had an Airbnb here in Lincoln and hated it. So that was one of the ones I sold in 2020.
Why did you hate it?
So here it's probably different than LA or somewhere fancy, right? But it was like $65 a night. And so college kids would rent it because they didn't want to clean up their after the parties, you know. And so they would just trash it, and it was just terrible. And then I didn't systematize it well, so then I was getting the calls in the middle of the night, like drunk people being like, oh, where is it? Oh, and they're like a block over, you know. It was just like, it was just so dumb. Like, it was such a waste.
We're renting ours out for like $650 a night, and what I've also noticed, because we did it for lower in the beginning, and then the clientele was just a little bit more like, would keep it a little bit trashier and all that stuff. And then now that it's a higher price, they're kind of, when they stay here, they do expect a lot more. Like they want like everything to be ironed, but the
sheets
like
need to be ironed or they'll request money back.
Right, but whenever that lady did stay here, it was perfectly clean. There was nothing wrong with anything. And then with the cheaper clients, we did have like things were broken. There was like gashes in the wall.
Yeah.
So sometimes with the higher clients, it is a little bit easier because it's like we got like $6,000 for a couple weeks, and then there was nothing wrong with the house afterwards. So it was nice.
And we're just, because we're keeping ours on the market, we're just Airbnb right now in the meantime while it's on the market. So we're navigating between showings, which has worked because it covers our interest payments in the meantime. But I think we've definitely learned a lot from this Airbnb time that I have so much respect for people who do Airbnbs, because the amount, and even just to get it on Airbnb, our Huntington Beach property, to get on Airbnb, the amount of inspections and paperwork, and like we had to turn in a packet this big to the city. It took like months to get approved. Like it's just so, and then every person requires so much.
And we have to get the neighbors' signatures.
Oh yeah, every neighbor in the community.
So they make you jump through like 10 different loopholes just to rent it out, and renting it out on Airbnb won't even cover our interest payments.
Yeah.
So it's not even like we're going to be making money, but just to help with the interest, you have to jump through like 10,000 hoops, which we're like,
and so we learned we definitely don't want to be Airbnb hosts as our long-term goal. We want we want those deals that you have a lease and you have a tenant.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for people who do Airbnb full-time and all these Airbnb gurus, because first off, it's saturated. Second off, people are crazy. It's hard. Like every few days dealing with a new person with totally new problems and things that they want, and maybe we go a little too far with giving them the number.
Yeah, we really
and we're
do.
Like, she's there for them for everything. I'm like, now they are gonna call you for everything.
Yeah, because in the beginning when you give them too much, then they're like, oh.
She sets up chocolates, flowers. Like I don't know how they could ever. I mean, they still will complain about everything.
Yeah. And I'm on call 24/7. So like 10 o'clock at night, they're like, oh, this isn't working. I call our plumber, I call our electrician, they come in right away. And then they still are like, thanks. They don't even say thanks. They're just like, yeah, get it fixed. I'm like, you didn't realize it's 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It was not my favorite either. It's a thankless game, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, and new people, and then asking like dumb questions every 3 days, like how do you use the thermostat and how do you do this.
What about would you ever consider doing Airbnbs if the numbers made sense and if you could have a full-time manager for it?
I would probably prefer long-term, but lately I've been thinking about doing, I'm so ADD, right? Like I'm just like, oh, shiny, oh, look at this, I can make money this way. But I've been thinking like I want to be able to hold more properties. So how can I do that? And it may just be that I have to bite the bullet and systematize the Airbnb thing, or systematize like a midterm rental to get more rent off of it so that I can justify keeping more of these properties, and then maybe do it for a few years, work my butt off on it, and then turn them into, normal rentals later when rents increase and we can buy.
Right.
But you don't realize the amount of cost that goes into setting up the Airbnb to even get the cash flow. Like, obviously, you have to furnish the unit. You need everything: pots, pans, silverware, towels. Like, there's so much that goes into that initial investment to get it on Airbnb, that it's hard to do it for a short period of time and not go that long route, because now you have this whole furnished place. And if you want to turn it into a long-term rental, you just sell all the furniture, like, it's and you have to do cute furniture, right, too, so it's difficult.
It's a difficult thing. I manage an Airbnb up in Alaska that's $1,000 a night, and I get 15% of the bookings, and I love that. I could do more of that, because then I don't have that kind of upfront cost the owner does. And then it's kind of worth it for me, like dollar per hour. And again, when you have somebody that's booking $1,000 a night place, like, they're usually, old man is going on like this trip of a lifetime with his adult kids or whatever. Like, they're super respectful of the place and pretty like.
Wow.
That's a really good idea, though, for
Let me
people
look at
potentially.
that.
We were talking earlier about you needing a side income sometimes, a lot of times in real estate, to make it work. So potentially an Airbnb host, like, or an Airbnb host where you're helping that high-end client and handle everything. It could be a great side income, especially if you have a few really nice high-end Airbnbs in one area.
Right.
Could be
I
a
should
great...
do what you were saying, reach out to people. Like she was saying before, I should reach out to people here in LA that have, like, maybe real estate investors that have their houses just sitting on the market, and offer to Airbnb it for them while they're waiting for it to sell.
I think most people that manage Airbnbs and are managing the cleaning and everything else are charging like way more than that for management. Usually, like, I think 30.
All right, that's
especially
nice.
if they don't have to lift a finger.
Okay, I'll send my cleaning lady.
But it's just such a...
A friend of mine flips houses in Hawaii, like super high end stuff. And during COVID, obviously the market just stopped in Hawaii. And he rented out some of his places to like rappers to do music videos in, and like porn videos and all kinds of things.
How do we do that?
So you can get really creative if you have some.
Actually, our house in West Hollywood, it's the best area of West Hollywood, like, gorgeous. So somebody rented it on Airbnb, and we have a huge window in the front, like, gorgeous. And they showed up and they canceled. They said, we have girls here and there's no privacy. And we're like, oh my God, they're for sure
doing a porno,
doing something. And I'm like, I'm kind of glad they canceled. Our couch is white.
That's actually such a good idea, though.
I know, like, hey, if you guys are going to use it for a porno, totally fine. Just we charge an extra 20% fee for pornos. And make that money. Why not?
That's true. We probably could rent it for pretty expensive if they're doing that.
I don't know how you market to that.
Well, this has been really informative. I've got a lot of ideas going in my head now. I need to go message some people.
Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck this year with all of your flips and your long-term rentals. And stay in touch if you ever need anything in LA.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Yeah.